be interviewing three people to see if their contemporary views on Marxism coincide with Karl Marx's actual. Many people think of Marxism, they think of the Soviet Union and the iron fist that ruled that country. But is that really what Karl Marx believed in? And is that really the type of government that he would have upheld?
Can you state your name, please?
Michael Barilla.
And your year?
This is my fifth.
And your major?
Kinesiology.
Have you ever heard of Karl Marx or been introduced to Marxism in any way or fashion?
Yeah, a couple times.
Was it in class or was it through friends?
I've been like once through class and then once through a friend.
And when you first heard of Marxism, what was your general impression of it? Or did you even understand what it was?
Yeah, I understood what it was. I thought it was actually pretty good because I also think everyone should pretty much be equal, not run by one person.
When you first learned about Marxism, was it more the Soviet Union's take on Marxism, or do you think it was more closely related to Marx's beliefs on Marxism? If you even know the difference between them two.
I know the difference because of my friends, so I would say it's more towards Marx's view.
Okay. And if you give me a brief description of what you understand Marxism to be, what would that be?
I would say Marxism is it's just that they want everyone to be equal, basically through economic status, and that one day everyone will rise up and be equal, not just run by one big corporation.
So, seeing that you know both sides of Marxism and the Soviet approach to Marxism using communists, what would you say would be the two biggest differences between Marx's view and the Soviets' view, if there is a difference at all?
I'd say the biggest difference would be through Marx's view. It's that everyone kind of is equal with what they do, based on their how they're working. So they're both working equally as hard and being able to make the same amount. And then for the Russian view, I would say it's more of it was controlled by government, and they kind of portion off what you get and whatnot.
Hi, can I have your name, please?
Erin Kim,
And your year?
second year,
And your major?
accounting.
Have you ever been introduced to Karl Marx or Marxism in any fashion? And if so, where did you first hear about it?
Yes, I have heard about it, and I heard it mostly in history in high school.
What was your first impression of Marxism when you were first introduced to it?
I thought it made a lot of sense, and I was kind of confused on why more of the world doesn't work that way.
And what was the main thing about Marxism that you agreed with?
That, I gotta know.
Can I have a brief summary of your take on Marxism?
Well, I was introduced more to the Soviet definition of it.
And what exactly was the Soviet standpoint that you were introduced to?
It was a much more right-wing, conservative way where the government had a lot more say.
Do you think the Soviets' take on Marxism correlates to the belief that Karl Marx implemented?
Well, that was the only way I was introduced, so I'm not sure.
Can I have your name, please?
Yes, Martin Licea,
And your major?
ISDS major,
And your year?
fifth year senior.
Have you been previously introduced to Karl Marx or any type of Marxist ideals?
I have, not too much in depth, but I do know a thing or two, not philosophically, more of the economic side of Karl Marx.
And when you did hear about Karl Marx, was it just through school, or did you hear about it through friends, word of mouth, articles?
No, it's mostly been through school, high school, and when I really got into a little bit more in depth with Karl Marx, it's been here in college.
And when you were taught about Marxism, what exactly was taught you?
I did take an approach on communism. I know a little bit of his history, about what he wrote, the journals that he wrote in Germany, and then I think he moved to France, I believe, to write another article. But his approaches, I learned a little bit about Marxism, about how communism has taken a piece from his ideas, and how a lot of his ideas are still here today.
Have you been well-versed, or have you even heard about the ideals that Soviets had when looking at Marxism?
I'm not too sure on it. I do know that the way the Soviet Union and other communist countries have taken Marxism isn't exactly how Karl himself intended. The ideas are there, but I don't think the execution has been there. Mostly because there's different ways people interpret things, and I think that it's still very greedy the way that these countries have been using it. That's just my personal opinion, but I don't think it has been the same.
Are you able to explain anything that differentiates Karl Marx's actual philosophy on Marxism in relation to the Soviets and how they implemented Marxism?
I just think that the way the Soviets have implemented it is kind of flawed, because if you look at Marxism, he talks a lot about his ideas about how there is a classless society, and very utopian per se. And the way that the Soviets have run communism in quotes, because I don't think it is true communism. It's very structured still. There's still government, and the proletariats are still very below, you know. So I don't think it's been the same. I do think that there is a huge difference from what can be and what has been.
What do you think is the contemporary view on communism, and why do you think it's looked at in such a negative way in America?
There's a lot, if you think about it, that's the only way that it can be viewed here in the United States, especially because we're a government run by very rich people, you know, people in power. And if you think about it, why would these people in power even want us to know that about Marxism, true Marxism? And it's very obvious to me, at least, that the government, the people in power, even the wealthy, the 1%, I think all of them have a very negative view on communism because it's a threat to them. And a threat that they don't want us to find out about. So naturally, everything we read, everything we see, everything we hear is going to be very skewed towards them, you know. So I don't think that we have a positive view on communism / Marxism because of that.